Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic and impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business so they can share them with us and we can all learn as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on everyone's old traditional ways of outreach and prospecting that just doesn't work and everyone hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Colin Ward. He is the owner of AVC Debt Recovery, providing no-win, no-fee business debt recovery and commercial debt collection. So Colin, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I want to jump in and ask you a question I always love to start off with, which is this. If you were able to go back and start again today in your business, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Well, I wouldn't have. The two lawyers who wanted to start the business with me fell out and went AWOL. So I probably would have chosen better partners. But in terms of doing what I do, I've done, try not to make as many mistakes. It's as simple as that, really. And yeah, try not to make as many mistakes as I did when I first started. So
yeah.
So that would be hindsight.
Yeah, well, definitely. Is there a particular mistake or challenge that you made or did that just looking back at it, you're like, oh gosh, I would have done that very, very different? Because we all make mistakes, and even now we all make mistakes in our businesses. But is there anything in particular that you have looked at that maybe has been one of the biggest mistakes or challenges?
The biggest mistake I made was not being able to filter all the garbage that people tell you that you need to do to get where you need to be. So I probably would have, probably listening to people who don't know what they're talking about are trying to sell you something. So it's being better at filtering out the noise would have probably been where I would have been more successful faster.
Yeah. So just as you said, weeding out the noise, understanding kind of what is not relevant or maybe may not be quite true for you. Is that what you're saying?
That's yes, 100%.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Well, as you've grown and built your business, and obviously, you're in an industry that I think can be quite challenging. Maybe you find it quite easy, but what's been one of the hardest parts of scaling in what you're doing without being like salesy and spammy in your approach?
Yeah, trying to get people, when you're in no win, no fee debt recovery, everybody thinks it's a free lunch. If we don't win, we don't eat. So making sure that there's two types of debt. There's two types of debtors. There's the can't pays and the won't pays. So it's working out the can't pays without expending too much of your time and energy and money, because usually the can't pays are the debts that look the most appetizing because they're usually the most money. So it's developing the processes to wheedle out the can't pays, because the won't pays are debts that can be collected, and that's really what we have to focus on. But usually the can't pays are the real revenues,
Right.
on paper.
Right. Okay. And when it comes to scaling, though, like winning new clients, like bringing them on board and actually working with new clients, what's been one of the hardest ways to scale with that, to generate leads, to sell, to close more clients? What's been one of the hardest parts or challenging parts for you on
that? I've always thought that the equation is how much does it cost to obtain a customer is the hardest equation to be able to solve. It's a bit like Einstein and his theory of relativity. If you knew the answer to that, you wouldn't be sitting here working. You'd just be sitting on a jet ski in the Bahamas. It's working out what works. We've tried everything. We tried
Mm.
all different types of customer acquisition, networking, pay-per-click, advertising. We found email marketing quite successful, but it's a lot of it is trial and error. And I think cold calling is a very successful way of getting customers for debt, but that you have to work out the cost and how you're going to develop the right script, and are you talking to the right people? That is again, that's an equation. How much does it cost to obtain a customer? And that's something that is there every day, and you can't afford to let that interfere with the day-to-day business, which is basically getting monies back for clients.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting to hear kind of it's worked for you because every business seems to be a little bit different in their approach and what works and things. So yeah, that's really important. When you look at, as you said, building up these new client base, reaching out, maybe you said you do email marketing, some phone calls. What's been the one thing that you've changed the most to build relationships with your prospects that's helped you to build your business and close them as clients?
We don't really, in our business, it's very, you tend not to build a relationship. The relationship is between you and the client, is that you are delivering them a service that they absolutely need, which is they need their monies in their account. So you
Mhm.
tend not to build relationships with them. We hardly meet clients. We have one or two clients who we have met who, because we're doing contract law work for them, which is slightly
Mhm.
different. But in terms of debt recovery, we often never meet clients. It's a telephone conversation. It's it, it you know they're very pleased when we win their money back, and they leave a review. The relationship goes as far as us winning successfully for them and them leaving a 5-star review. So that's really part of the relationship. It's quite a lonely business, because it's not relationship led. It is actually,
Hmm.
it's process led, which is you are getting their money back for them.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. So as you're building business, then is it something that they come back to you more and more, or are you constantly having to win like new business? And is that a challenge for you in what you're doing?
Well, we always say in business debt recovery, if someone has a large portfolio of debts, then they're doing something wrong. So we actually are one of the few debt recovery companies who look at the reasons for debt after we've collected their first debt. And then we actually look at their terms and conditions, because good debt recovery starts with proper terms and conditions and proper recourse to contract law, which
Mhm.
most companies, when they start out, don't really think is important. They think selling is important and doing what they do well is important, but recourse to simple terms and conditions is the most important thing. And I always use this example in our business. The second richest man in the world will not allow you to do business with him until you agree his terms and conditions. And nobody I've ever spoken to has ever read those terms and conditions. And the company is Amazon. And they are very successful because they put terms and conditions at the heart of their business, at the start point of any relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, yeah, very interesting. And I think it's a good point as well. Like, how many people actually do read the terms and conditions? It's very rare. Maybe with larger businesses, if there's big contracts and multi-million pound deals or dollar deals or whatever, then
Yeah.
obviously they may have lawyers go over stuff. But just your normal day-to-day stuff, no one reads that stuff, do they?
I, I work for a global multinational. I don't think I should name them on here, but it's on LinkedIn if you want to look them up. And there were 5 lawyers there, and I was the contracts guy. And they used to come in with all the terms and conditions and said, give them to Colin. He loves the law. So I used to read all the terms and conditions. They didn't bother reading terms and conditions. And this was one of a massive multinational, global multinational. So very interesting. It did used to make me chuckle. They used to call me Mr. Terms and Conditions. And
Yeah.
these were the lawyers. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Fascinating. Well, when you look at overall, I know you've talked about minimizing mistakes that you made at the beginning. You wish you could have changed those. You said you went into business with a couple partners that didn't quite work out. You would have changed that. But over the course of your business, if you were giving feedback to someone younger that was starting off in business, what would be the number one piece of advice that you would give them?
Work, work, work. I don't think there's any substitute for putting in the hours and doing the work and getting the processes right. But then you have to put in the hours. You have to put in the hard yards. And I don't think that we're living in a world now where people think they always tell you, oh, you can be a millionaire, just do these three things. And in this business, it's about hard yards, and it is hard. And I don't think, and I'm not criticizing anybody nowadays, but we seem to be in a world where YouTubers are the new multimillionaires, and you can go on YouTube now and become a millionaire just by posting, or TikToker. And but I'm old school, and I think that the harder I work, the luckier I get. And that's always been my phrase. It's the way I was brought up. It's the way my father brought me up. I mean, my father had an early grave, I think, because he worked too hard. But I do believe that there's no substitute for hard work. And if you put in the hours and you put it, and you get the processes right, then that's where you are. And that's my philosophy. And I'm sure someone out there will tell me, oh, you can do it like this. I'm sure they can, but I can't. I only know one way. When I'm cycling, the only way is to put in the miles and just, and push harder and harder and harder. That's how, and I'm a cyclist. And there's no cyclist out there who's winning anything who doesn't do the training and put in the hard miles and absolutely, on the rivet all the time and come back. And that's the only one I know how.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally agree. Like you've got to put in the graft for sure. So, well, Colin, over the next, let's say 2 to 3 years of your business, what are you looking to achieve? What are your goals?
I'm in the process at the moment of trying to scale up the business to bring in someone who's got a particular set of skills of scaling up, which that's not one of my skills. My skill is, when I used to play football, a guy I played football with, he said, Colin, your style is head down, backside up. And I think my football career is matched by my business career. So I'm head down, backside up, and nose to the grindstone. So I need to bring someone in, which I'm in the process of doing at the moment, who can take me on to another level. I've had friends who've had very successful businesses who tell me about how to scale it up and how to scale it up and what to do. But if you haven't got a skill in something, you haven't got a skill in it. So my skill is it's the processes that I've developed from working for multinationals, which I've transferred to business debt recovery. So I've got processes that I can show someone. I've got scripts. I've got ways of working. That's what I was brilliant at when I was in the multinationals. And this is what I've brought to my business. I can show someone this, and if they've got a skill in scaling up and an acquisition of clients, that is the key to any business, is acquisition of clients. And yeah, if you look at anything, anybody in business needs to acquire more clients because that's where your revenues are.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you're bringing in someone to complement what you're doing in your business as well to help you scale. So that's fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, Colin, for people that are looking for ways to contact you or get in touch with you about what you do, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. If you Google certain phrases, I don't know if I'm allowed to. If you
Yeah.
type in, so in Google in certain, we're very strong in the south of England, and because we've got offices in Surrey and Dorset. So if you type in certain generic phrases like debt recovery agency or business debt recovery Surrey or business debt recovery Dorset or commercial debt recovery, sometimes we usually come up as number one behind the organics, but I mean, we are sending we're doing a lot of email marketing. I've got an email marketing partner who I think is very, very good. And, and generally, yeah, we're going to start. We always look at our cost, the cost of acquisition, how much does it cost? but we're trying to spend a little bit more on customer acquisition, because that's we see, if we're going to scale it up, we're going to have to work out the best way to get more customers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I definitely recommend, particularly
We get, oh,
people.
sorry, we also get a lot of business from recommendations. So
Yeah.
people that we've got a lot of 5-star reviews on Google, and we don't use Trustpilot for reviews. We don't use it. We just use our Google reviews,
Yeah.
and we do blog as well. We do blog on LinkedIn. Whether or not that works, I don't know. But it's I've got a lot of followers on LinkedIn, but not picking up too many clients. I just have
Yeah.
actually, tell a lie. One phoned me last week. He's a very successful business, and he's in Barbados at the moment on his yacht. He wants to talk to me when he gets back.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Well, we could always talk about that later, Colin, around LinkedIn, because that's my specialty. But I definitely recommend everyone checking out Colin. It's AVC Debt Recovery. If you are in England, particularly the south of England, you can always look him up in Google, the way he explained that with the different search terms, which is absolutely brilliant. So, Colin, thank you so much for being on the show today, and really appreciate you sharing just your business experience and what you have learned from that as well. So, thank you so much. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods everybody hates. To find out more, send me a direct message on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn on LinkedIn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.